Now more than ever, innovative technologies are fueling change and sparking new ways of thinking. Collaboration between corporations and startups is key to staying at the forefront of these trends. However, finding the right startups can be expensive, time-consuming, and ineffective. But Plug and Play is here to help. As a corporate partner, you will gain access to a whole ecosystem of innovation. Discover startups that meet your tech interests. Stay updated on the latest trends and network with industry peers. We will help you during every stage of your innovation journey, no matter where you are and where you want to go. Get in touch today.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Personalization through Smart Packaging webinar. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Gabriela, and I'm Senior Program Manager at Plug and Play Tech Center. I'm responsible for coordinating our acceleration program for food and beverage vertical in Silicon Valley. If you're interested in learning more about our programs or interested in becoming a mentor, please reach out to me. This is one of my favorite slides at Plug and Play. It shows how it started in a small building in Palo Alto, just renting out office space for early stage technology companies. Now we have over 20 industry-specific accelerator programs across more than 30 locations globally. We make moreover than 200 investments each year and introduce these companies to some of the largest corporations in the world for piloting, commercialization, and financial investment deals. As I mentioned, today we have over 30 offices around the world and over 600 employees dedicated to finding amazing startup technologies and connecting them with corporate partners to help them scale. Our food program has made some big strides in the past 2 years. Each one of our offices has its own dedicated team to finding and investing companies, as well running its own acceleration programs. Through the sharing of our network within Plug and Play, the addition of each office adds to the strength of our network. And this is our agenda for today. Shortly after the opening remarks, our panel discussion will take place for about an hour, followed by a 30-minute Q&A session. Please type your questions in the Q&A chat box at any time, and you will get to that at the end of the session. With that, I'd like to pass the word to my colleague, Michelle Shees. She is co-director and Senior Ventures Associate with the Food and Beverage Program in Silicon Valley.
Great, thank you so much, Gabby, and welcome and thank you to everyone for joining us today. Like Gabby said, I'm the co-director and Senior Venture Associate for the Food Program at Plug and Play, and I'll be moderating the panel discussion today. So first, let me just give a super brief introduction of today's topic, which is basically all about the end consumer. So nowadays, consumers are more informed than ever before. They don't want to wait passively for, a strategically placed marketing play. They're making informed decisions, and they associate their purchases as a form of activism. So along with e-commerce sales having gone through exponential growth and the rapid increase of digital native brands, how do we actually keep these consumers engaged and coming back to your brand? Well, part of the answer lies in better understanding the consumer and knowing exactly what they want when they need it. So they want to be seen, they want brands to care about their individual purchase journey. So today we're going to be discussing smart packaging as a tool to enable this and how this personalized IoT-powered approach can be an answer to the constant shifting consumer preference. So with that introduction, we'll dive into the introductions of the speakers today. So we are joined with 3 panelists. So we have Aditi from Aggregated, Cole from Pedagogy, and Launika from Olivery. So I will pass it first to Aditi to introduce herself.
Thank you, Michelle. Hello, everyone. A pleasure to be here and look forward to a very fun discussion with our customers and partners, Cole and Launika. Thank you for joining us. This is Aditi Aji, founder and CEO of Aggregated. We are a IoT-powered smart packaging solution where we help brands really understand their consumers through post-purchase data, which means usage of the products and how consumers interact with your products inside their homes, and really enable a two-way conversation with them so you can build better products suited to their needs and really understand your consumers to one, serve them better, and also ensure that the products that you're building really meets their needs. So happy to be here and look forward to a productive discussion.
Great, thank you so much, Aditi, and thank you for joining us today. I will now pass it to Cole to introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Cole Wolfson. I wear a couple of different hats. One is I ran the Alpha Lab Gear hardware accelerator here in Pittsburgh, PA for a number of years, of which Aggregated was one of the companies that came through who I had the opportunity to work with. But in addition to that, my wife and I own a chain of super premium natural pet food stores here in Pittsburgh. And one of the nice synergies of those two hats is that a number of the companies that would come through our accelerator program would use my customer base and my stores as guinea pigs for a lot of the early stage products that they're working with. So I believe we were one of Aditi's first pilots, which we'll talk about more in a little bit, I'm sure. And we've been working with them ever since. My other current hat is I'm the Director of Innovation for the Pittsburgh International Airport.
Great. We look forward to having your perspective with us on the panel today. Last but not least, we will have Lannika introduce herself.
Yes, hello. My name is Lonneke. I'm a co-founder of Olivery, and Olivery is a smart olive oil service. We're a startup located in the Netherlands, and we were looking for technology to make our smart bottle or our olive oil bottle smart. And to connect the smart bottle with our e-commerce platform. And during looking for this, we found Average online, and we got in contact. And since then, we just started working together.
Wonderful. So we're excited to have all three panelists join us today and really give their perspective about what exactly is smart packaging, how do we use it to understand our consumers, and then talking about some of the use cases that they've worked on with Aggregated. So really kicking off the panel with our first question, it's really to get everybody on the same page, to give some context around what exactly is smart packaging, and more specifically, IoT-powered smart packaging. So maybe Aditi can kind of kick this off and kind of describe a little bit more about their technology at Aggregated.
Sure thing. So incidentally, I do have a Olivery bottle here. This is our smart tag that goes on to the bottle. And basically, it has sensors that detect not only usage. So, at any point in time, how much is remaining in the bottle, but it also detects when you're nearly running out and auto reorders. So as a consumer, the next time you run out of olive oil or dog food or shampoo, you'll find one at the door, right? Zero touch shopping. Now, the difference with this particular smart packaging is that it's a completely autonomous solution. Consumers just connect it one time. We do take the opt-in, and once they're connected, it's pretty seamless. It's all autonomous. They don't have to scan. They don't have to push a button. It's all just automated in that when they run out, it'll detect, uses Bluetooth, which is different than any other smart labels that you see in market, which has NFC and other technologies. Because it uses Bluetooth, it allows for an autonomous solution. We've designed this keeping consumers in mind, so it doesn't interfere with their lifestyle, and keeping brands in mind as well, where the brands get access to a real-time dashboard that they can see how consumers are using the product. For example, how often are they using it, and how much are they using it? And we also enable a two-way communication at point of use. So let's say they are at 10%, you can send a coupon to incentivize another purchase. Or for that matter, if they're not using the product for a couple of days, you can understand why they're not using and also nudge a behavior, specifically in food and beverage, where consumers want to see their own consumption patterns and also understand how they are consuming various products. So it's a two-sided market. We do work with the brands to enable this technology and tag it, and this goes to the consumers. Consumers log in one time and connect, and from there, there's a digital connection established between the consumer and the brand.
Wonderful. I really like how you touched on the two different perspectives of smart packaging. One, for the consumer to have kind of a more personalized approach for that brand, and then also for the brands to have a little bit more insight in terms of the fulfillment and process side of things, and looking at the demand from the consumer standpoint. Lanika, Cole, do you want to add anything to that? Maybe specifically how you might use AdRich, but we'll also be diving into those use cases a little bit later as well.
I'll wait for the use cases.
Great. So I think Aditi did great kind of explaining and giving an overview of the technology. I think also to set the stage, because now we have some insight into what exactly is smart packaging, we also want to understand how have consumer preferences changed over the last couple of years and why it's important to actually personalize these experiences to the individual consumer. And then kind of jumping off that question, you know, how has this change in consumer loyalty actually change how we approach the market, I think, especially when it comes to smart packaging. So maybe I'll pass it to Cole to kick this one off.
That's a big question. So, you know, to kind of piggyback on some of the stuff that Aditi said before, we as a retailer, we're looking at a smart packaging solution like AdRich from the perspective of customer loyalty in a very competitive environment, especially with consumers moving more and more to e-commerce and looking for fulfillment solutions. You know, what we really saw as kind of like a first level opportunity here was maintain customer stickiness by bringing them into a system that solves for a problem that they have, and then keeps them in that system through kind of like the automatic fulfillment part of things. So that's where we started out. And you know, it's a perfect discrete solution for a perfect discrete problem for, you know, retailers, brands, e-commerce, et cetera. But then the next level is where it gets really interesting. Once you have that data, the usage data, you know, particularly, what can you do with that to uncover additional insights about your consumer? Now, with us and the way that we used it, it was a very narrow band that we were looking at, which was essentially like, are you using this product regularly? And if you're not, what are other ways in which we can intervene with that customer in order to determine what has gone off the rails here? So, you know, we were able to see usage data with something like pet food. It is being used very regularly, right? You're feeding your pet twice a day, every day, hopefully. And so if you're seeing them not using the product, it means a couple of things. One, as we found out a number of times with our customers, you know, if they're going on a trip or the pet was out of the house or something like that. But what we could also determine was whether they abandoned the food, whether the pet was ill. And then with the amount of usage, we could get into, hypothetically, are they feeding enough? Are they feeding too much? And then pushing, you know, kind of interventions or suggestions based on that data. So, you know, we came to it again from this kind of like first level fulfillment perspective. But then once you start seeing the data and seeing the data from multiple people over an extended period of time, you recognize that you can build a tremendous number of potential applications for it, depending on what the product is.
That's wonderful. I think starting from the fulfillment side is sometimes all you think of when you think of smart packaging, but really it gives you a whole world of insights in terms of how consumers are using the products, and not only that, but how they're not using your products as well. So that's some really great insights there. Maybe Alonika, if you can maybe touch on, what you've seen in the market that made you want to reach out to Adrich to use their solution, how you've noticed consumers kind of engaging with certain products in the market.
Yeah. We already had an olive oil company, and the feedback from our consumers was that they don't want to throw the bottle away because they really like it. And it's also not really sustainable to throw glass away after one use. And Adichie already showed our bottle. It's black. It's made of special violet glass, and this glass also prolongs a shelf life. So olive oil, keeping our olive oil in this glass means you can use it for a longer time. So we were looking for a solution to refill the beautiful bottle, and also to make it a showpiece in your kitchen. So we thought about refilling with compact refill pouches, and then also make it in a subscription model. But it's also very hard with a black bottle to see when you reach the bottom. So it's hard to see when it's empty. So that's why we were looking for a solution that like an IoT solution, that a chip or the technology can see when the bottle is empty and send out a refill only when you need it. Because normally when you have a subscription, for example, on coffee beans or granola or pet food, you can do a subscription. But sometimes your life is a little bit unpredictable because you have a lockdown and you are at home a lot, or you can travel, or you have a group of friends over for dinner. So that's why you cannot put your life in a normal subscription, like every 4 or 8 weeks we deliver a new refill. So there, with the smart packaging, Aggregated helps us to deliver to the consumer only when they need it, because it's really not convenient when you get too much olive oil, or you get it too late at home. So it's only for the right time, delivered on the right time. So it's super convenient for the consumer. And it's also sustainable because you don't have too much olive oil. You just, so there's less food waste. You only get what you need. And for us, that's very important as well, to have less food waste. So we delivered just the smartest way there is.
Yeah, that's great. I really loved how you touch on the sustainability piece, because there is a lot of food waste that's happening across the food supply chain, especially at the consumer standpoint. I think from home use, retails, even in restaurants, that could be a certain application as well, to just have kind of an automated fulfillment inventory tracking process for them. And maybe to kind of build off of this question, I'll add kind of an extra piece maybe for you, Aditi, before you answer the question. How has maybe the pandemic shifted, this change? There's been a lot more e-commerce activity. There's been a lot more kind of ease from home mindset. So maybe adding that perspective into your answer would be great.
Yeah, so the pandemic has introduced a significant consumer shift. If anything, all the it has accelerated the market in a certain sense, both for e-commerce and needless to say, in-home consumption has changed, right? People being at home more, a lot of across product categories, we've seen that consumption patterns, whatever baseline studies were done, all of that is required to be done again because in-home consumption has changed. So that's one trend. But also the pandemic, during the peak of it, most of the consumers were forced to shop online, right? That was a shift that came about. And during that process, a lot of consumers who were traditional shoppers who would go into brick and mortar and enjoyed the shopping saw the convenience of that online shopping. And now there's a whole new segment of consumers who prefer that as their primary shopping method. So to cater to, in a way, a lot of unmet needs have come about with the pandemic. And again, talking to understanding consumer needs and the shift in consumers, it goes beyond just the product, right? They're looking for an experience around the product. It goes beyond the taste, it goes beyond the packaging. What can the brand do to go the extra mile to keep the consumers happy and understand their needs? Makes that a differentiator for the brand. And that is a significant shift that we have seen with our data that we have put across product categories, and also the fact that a whole new consumer segment is now acquainted with online shopping. E-commerce innovation has accelerated, possibly 10x, right? What was possibly looking 5 years down the line is a need that has accelerated. And it's become very apparent that brands should now take action to immediately put these technology innovations and adopt technology so that they can better meet the consumer needs, especially because the needs have changed and the expectations of consumers is a lot more today compared to what it was a decade ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely have to agree with that. I think consumers are a lot more demanding, and the corporations really just have to answer to that because you know, a lot of the power lies with the consumer, right? You know, their purchase decisions, what make the corporations run, bring out new products. I think that's also started the shift for a lot of these digital native brands because they're targeting these kind of specific niche demographics. But if corporations can really target each of those individual consumers, they can have better loyalty, better insights into what their consumer wants from them. So before the next question, we're actually going to launch a quick poll to the audience. So it's going to be kind of select all that applies question. And it's going to be asking you, why do you think brands need to adopt smart packaging technologies? So we've kind of touched at this point of the panel a few different perspectives that brands might have. You know, it can promote sustainability, like Lanika described, with only giving as much product as needed instead of kind of a subscription-based model where it's a consistent time-based, you know, every month or every couple of weeks, but it's really depending on the need of the consumer. Maybe it's increase the loyalty and the lifetime value, like Aditi said, to kind of understand those individual touch points with the consumer. I know Cole also mentioned, you know, a little bit more about the supply chain side of things, fulfillment. That's how he first started using AdRich. And then it can be a couple of other insights as well. So if you guys can answer that poll really quickly, that would be helpful as we move into the next question, which is, what really are some concrete results and actionable insights that you guys can share, maybe specifically with using AdRich or, you know, smart packaging, IoT powered packaging? We can also see here from the results of the polls, it seems like inventory and supply chain transparency is a big factor for a lot of our corporate partners, as well as promoting sustainability and obtaining deeper insights from the end consumer. So maybe having seen the results of the polls, if you guys can share maybe some concrete use cases that you've been through, concrete insights that you've gained from the consumers, that would be really great to share. And I'll open it to whoever wants to start.
So I can talk about it, especially from the inventory and supply chain perspective. So what we saw, we're a small operation, but you can, expand it to large corporate entities. We had a kind of set carrying cost of inventory that, we had in stock in order to ensure that, we had every product that our customer would need at every time, for every visit. And what we were able to do when we started using the Aggregated labels was we had more visibility into a more focused pieces of time, smaller slices of time of when people were going to need product. And so that helped us in two ways. One, on the auto fulfillment side, we knew, okay, like we're getting near, 10 customers that are going to need to be fulfilled in the next, to be replenished in the next week. So let's ensure that we have that as well as the standard amount of stock on the shelves. But then we also were able to say, we know that these 10 people are going to need their product in this period of time. Therefore, we can wait 3 weeks before we actually put it on the shelves. So it's a long way of saying that what it allowed us to do was tie up less cash in inventory sitting on the shelves waiting for to be purchased by consumers. Instead, we were proactive in the sense that we were putting product into our customers' hands essentially before they were asking for it, and reactive in the sense that we would be able to hold less a quantity and tie up less cash on an ongoing basis because we had better insights into what times during our ordering and inventory replenishment cycle we would need product. So it was a small sample size, but it was certainly noticeable when we ran it, and conceivably could be expanded to production lines, warehousing, shipping, etc.
That's great. I love that from the fulfillment standpoint. I think that's also really important, is understanding what the supply and demand is, and then also looking at the granular pieces. Like you said, some consumers are different. Maybe there's some time periods that are specific to the sales cycle, things like that.
And if I could just add on one other part of that, one of the things I had been talking about some pet food manufacturers about, again, is through the lens of fulfillment, what consumer insights can we see earlier, or can they see earlier than they otherwise would? So in the pet space, one of the very interesting parts of the pandemic was this acquisition of pets in households. It was unbelievable. And so there are, I could imagine, and the pet people the manufacturers I was talking to, could imagine that with some of this data that would be enabled through consumer usage of the smart label, you might actually kind of have a lead over your competitors as to when these trends are unfolding, and ramp up production of products or be prepared with a new marketing campaign or whatever it happens to be. So, from a retail / e-commerce provider perspective, there's some interesting insights, but we've talked to partners in the industry that can see how it can be pushed all the way back through the supply chain from the insight perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that there's both perspectives there. Amazing. I think maybe Aditi, did you want to share?
Yeah, I wanted to add to Cole's point where, specifically because we're giving the last mile demand patterns, which is really accurate to the point where, when each and every consumer is down to 10%, you get notified that such and such a consumer needs the refill. So one, it gives lead time. And two, to Cole's point, with the end accurate demand patterns, when you start feeding that into your production line, you get more accurate production planning. So we saw somewhere around 10 to 15% in terms of inventory carrying cost reduction. So that was one metric. And also, I think Lonica can add to it in terms of sustainability, which was the second item in the poll. With the refill model, the one thing that we could see is that this is specifically a great fit for refills, because it is a consumer shift in terms of getting them to refill a bottle for life, right? So our tag can detect when they run out, but it can also detect whether they refilled. So in a way, if you ship a refill and you're trying to understand if it's a huge significant consumer behavior change, are they able to actually refill your product? There is the technology can give you those insights as well. So it feeds into sustainability with the refill model specifically. And of course, with that, it allows for subscription model, a better, more precise subscription, which is a need-based subscription compared to frequency. And in terms of insights, of course, along the way with all this established, you can get very, very granular insights, right? Even to the point whether you can nudge them when they are refilling. You can also prompt them saying, hey, you reduce one more single-use plastic, and empower your consumers to actually contribute to that whole sustainability initiative. So those are some ways that we could really cater to all those three points that was brought up here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that use case with the olive bottle and that Lonica shared earlier. Maybe you can expand on that, Lonica, like how having Adrich has like created a lot more of these touch points for you and your consumer. I think you mentioned something about like if they haven't used it in a while, you can maybe nudge them with like a new recipe that they can try out, things like that. If you can expand on that, that would be great.
Yeah, I think it's also important to mention that there are also less touch points, because with our consumers with a normal subscription, they have a lot of questions about how can I pause my subscription, or I want to change it from every 4 weeks to every 8 weeks. So from consumers with a normal subscription, we get a lot of questions. And with the consumers with the smart bottle, we don't have those questions, because the refill is just coming in when they need it. So there's a lot of automation over there. So it's less communication about the subscription and about delivery. So that's for us very nice. So that goes very smoothly. So when the bottle gives a notification to the app that it's almost empty, then our e-commerce platform also gets a notification for a reorder. And then the payment goes automatically, and then we just pack the refill and send it out. So that's going very smoothly. And I think as a result of that, we have very happy customers. And that's for us very important, and also a reason why we exist. When they use less, so when they use the smart bottle less, we are able, like you say, to send newsletters with recipe and inspiration how to use olive oil, because it's a good quality olive oil, and you can use it for cooking, for dressing your salad, or for dipping your bread, also for deep frying. So we give a lot of inspiration how to use the olive oil, because sometimes people think, oh, it's a very good quality. I need to use less so I can, so it lasts longer. But we want to inspire them to use it more, and yeah, also for just daily use. Yeah, I think. And it's also that, like Cole said as well, it's for, you can also do better forecasting. So, and for us, of course, that's very useful as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you said that, it keeps your customers really happy. I think, we've also been kind of doubling down on how this is useful for the corporation side of things, but maybe we can dive into, have you had any concrete feedback from consumers using your product, how this type of packaging has made them feel? Do you think that they are on a broad scale ready for this type of personalization? Maybe diving into the consumer perspective.
Yeah, with our smart bottle users, it's good to have not a lot of feedback, because when we don't have a lot of feedback, it's going well. So that's very nice, and we see that's going well because of the refilling. That's for us also a reason that they are happy. And of course, sometimes we send out a questionnaire, like, is everything going okay? And he said, yeah, it's working fine, and it's all going smoothly. So that's very nice. And also, before we started with introducing the smart bottle, we also did a crowdfunding campaign for it, also to check out if consumers are ready. And then we saw that they are, because we had a successful crowdfunding campaign. So in this way, were able to launch the bottle, and also to test it out with the first group. And now we still work with pre-orders, so that we can roll out very calmly, and that we can also check the feedback as well regularly, and also to improve our customer service, because when we roll out in batches, and then we know what can happen and what the questions are. So our customer service is improving as well.
Great. Anything to add, Cole or Aditi?
So the one statistics that we'd like to share, and as we are rolling out the smart replenishment across product categories, in terms of consumer readiness, so we launched it as a smart SKU versus the normal bottle, or in case of Lonica, the smart bottle versus the normal. And across product categories, we've seen almost 80% adoption with consumers, and they prefer the smart SKU. They prefer the automatic replenishment concept compared to the normal one, including that there is a willingness to pay. So they're willing to pay a premium for the smart SKU. So that is a very interesting need in the market, where it's not just for the convenience, but there is a unmet demand there, where there is a willingness to pay, which will help with the business model, and drives the ROI for the investment in these kind of technologies.
Yeah, and what we found from our side is that adoption was quite high, probably right around what the number that Didi quoted, or maybe 80%. I will say that I found that the younger consumers, went for it much more vigorously and enthusiastically than some of the older ones, which was interesting. And then the other thing that I wanted to say is, we had, as a retail, but I think this also applies to e-commerce and other means of distribution, we were a little bit concerned that if we were doing auto fulfillment of the product, that it would actually lead to lower sales in our store and reduced foot traffic, because it's just like a grocery store, right? Where you put the eggs and the milk in the way back, and people have to walk through, the Dorito aisle in order to get it. And what we found out that was completely untrue in practice. The way we equated it to shopping for groceries was that buying dog food was the equivalent of buying milk. It has to be done regularly. It's heavy and awkward to carry. And it's just kind of a pain in the ass in general. And so even if milk just shows up at your house, right about when you need it, that doesn't mean you stop going to the grocery store. It just means that, if anything, it might mean that you have a stronger affinity for that particular brand or that particular outlet.
Absolutely. And I see some really great questions in the Q&A box, and we will be answering them really shortly after the panel discussion. So feel free to send in some more questions. I think these are really great and we'll get to them really soon. I think this has been really great conversations, a lot of insights as to what you can get from this, what you can give to the consumer from a brand standpoint. I think maybe diving into next is, how do corporations really start to implement this type of technology? Is there any kind of best practices or advice going forward when you implement this type of smart packaging or IoT powered packaging? And what should corporations really expect from this process? Anyone want to start?
Yeah, I can go first. Working with both Cole and Lonica, with any innovation, it's always iterative, right? So we started with a small group of consumers and expanded from there, getting feedback along the way. There are different ways that we could launch this, in terms of certain marketing campaigns. Like, think of it like a new loyalty program, for example, right? Instead of having loyalty cards, you're possibly having a smart product. It could be a gifting solution where it's a premium IoT experience that you're giving to your consumers, and you get opt-in that way. And one other use case is, it's unbelievable that consumers want to be involved in the co-development of this. So co-creation with the consumers has been another angle that some brands have taken, where you're involving the consumer in the journey of creating the next big thing in smart packaging, right? So that has been one other way, and I'm sure Lonica and Cole have more to add to this.
Yeah, great. Sorry, I see that you unmuted, Lonica, but there's also, I think, a really great question from the audience that I think related to something that you've said. I think you said that there is a crowdsourcing or crowdfunding platform that you've kind of tapped into to see whether or not there was a willingness from the consumer standpoint to pay. So somebody asked, how do you actually know that there is a willingness to pay for smart packaging? So maybe adding that to you, Lonica.
Yeah. So it was also a sort of crazy idea from us to start working with a smart bottle. So we were looking for investors, and they all thought like, yeah, maybe it's a little bit too much or something. So the way to prove if the market is ready, or to do research if the market is ready, is to do a crowdfunding campaign, because then you get an investment of all the people who are joining the crowdfunding, and we pay them back with the product. And like Aditi said, they want to be part of the co-creation. So we also launched the first 50 bottles in a group of people, and we asked, do you want to join our test? Because this is our first batch of bottles. We're not totally there yet, but can you help us out? And they are willing to do, they're willing to do that. And also, because of this, we could write some scenarios, what could happen, and how to improve the whole process. After that, we only sell the smart bottles now with pre-ordering. So sometimes we get like the emails, when can I buy the bottle again? So also because of the pre-ordering, you don't have, or the risk is not too high, and you can, they can follow you along the way, because they think that's very interesting.
Great. And I'll pass it to you, Cole, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I guess I would just add that while we didn't ask our consumers to pay for the privilege of doing auto fulfillment, one way in which we thought that we could try to recoup the cost to us of doing it, although from an internal standpoint, it was on the long term, it would be saving us money if we did it at scale. But our consumers are already paying us for essentially less efficient fulfillment in different ways, whether they're ordering online directly from us and there's a shipping cost or a delivery fee, or through a third-party provider like DoorDash or something. They're already paying exorbitant amount of money when they realize that they need something today because they forgot to plan ahead for it, or they just love the convenience of not having to leave their house in order to get it. So, in a way, this can be considered for many items a replacement cost for ways in which they're already doing fulfillment with a more efficient mechanism for providing that fulfillment.
Right. And I think to add to Cole's point, in case of pet food, we gave a bin with our smart tag on it. So it was almost like a co-branded promotional item that we gave to the consumers. And I think they loved that concept. And that way, it was more like through a marketing kind of campaign where the smart bin became a cool new thing that Cole gave to his consumers, and that way it eventually, I think there is a willingness to pay for like a subscription fee, like a smart subscription fee, and that could be another way to absorb the costs and do the ROI on the technology.
Great. Well, this is, I think, really valuable insights for our partners, thinking about where they want to start. Maybe it's, like you said, like a small scale project and kind of scaling it up. It's also thinking about maybe what types of insights they want to get from using the smart packaging, right? I think maybe as a follow-up question to this is, were there any concerns around this kind of smart packaging approach when you first started using it? I see somebody in the audience actually asked if there were any data privacy issues when you first started using it. Maybe from a cost standpoint, where did that come from? Somebody else in the audience asked if it can be implemented into a single-use package. So maybe addressing some of these points with, Adrich, maybe your specific project, or maybe even smart packaging as a whole.
Yeah, so the one thing that we were very conscious as we rolled this out early stages is keeping consumer in mind, while designing the product, and that includes the privacy portion of it. So our service is completely opt-in. The consumers know that there is something smart on the product, and they go through a process where there is a privacy policy and terms and conditions that they have to opt into in the app. And this could be your own private label app, or we have options where it's integrated into a retailer's app. So it's integrated into the lifestyle. So it is an opt-in process. Now, what we found is going this route through opt-in led to a better adoption, specifically because we were very, very upfront that there is something smart, but this is only to get you convenience and give you a digital connection to your favorite brand. And that helped really gain adoption for regular products like food and beverage, but also for in spirits and other product categories where, which was a surprise to us that consumers are willing to actually participate, given that there's a value equation for them. One is, of course, convenience is a value equation. And two, in certain product categories, they wanted to see their own consumption patterns. So we open up that data for them. In food and beverage, for example, if they want to achieve certain healthy lifestyles and understand their consumption pattern, there's a value equation there. So through the opt-in process, we have handled the data privacy, and that's led to good adoption. And I'm sure Cole and Lonica have more insight to that.
Yeah, Cole, Lonica, anything to add in terms of concerns that you've had maybe before using Adrich, or like when you first started out, and how those have been addressed?
Yeah, I didn't have any personal concerns, but data privacy, and especially when you're bringing a connected device into your home, is always something to be concerned about. And I think what Aditi has just talked about is the ways in which that Adrich as a whole, as a company, is very careful about data privacy concerns, et cetera, because that's exactly what you wouldn't want to happen, especially with a third-party provider for you. I was a little suspect about consumer willingness to bring in a connected product, but that, again, it turned out to be completely unfounded. And I think that's just proven out by the adoption rate of Alexa and other devices like that are prevalent in tens, if not hundreds of millions of homes. So I think from a consumer standpoint, there's, for better or for worse, there's a comfort level with that technology. And I think from a company perspective, you obviously need to have a trust in your partners and ensure that they are considering privacy, in the feature set of the product, as well as how they protect whatever data that they may have.
Yeah, absolutely. Monica?
Yeah, what I can add is also during our crowdfunding campaign, we also received feedback from potential consumers, like, I'm a little bit worried about privacy. Well, they do just have a choice to buy the product or not. So when they do buy the product, they are not really concerned about connected products. So you first of all need a consumer who is tech savvy and who's not afraid to start using new products. Yeah, I think that's the most important one. And yeah, we know that the privacy policy is up to date and a big topic for Adrich. My personal concerns, or the concern from the company, was that consumers need to download an extra app again on their phone. And sometimes they're not really willing to do that. Then they think, oh, again, an app from a brand. But it's just running in the background. So it's not a lot of effort to do that. So we were a little bit afraid, but it's going, yeah, it's going well. So yeah. So
yeah, and while we see the app download as a step that intentionally there, now eventually we can integrate it into the retailer's app itself, so it's seamless. But that step itself makes them more aware that there's something that's connected, and that helps with trying to put it into their lifestyle and keep them aware. And we also did a research study with a professor in Carnegie Mellon, and the result of that study from a psychology perspective is the more control you give to the consumers, the more trust you build. And the privacy can be handled that way, where you give the control to the consumers, and if they don't want to continue to participate, they just have to not have the app, and it's basically a normal bottle. We'll stop collecting the data. So that is something that's paramount, where we've given the control to the consumers to handle the privacy issues. And I did want to address the other question, whether it can be used for single-use products. It absolutely can. It is a peel and stick as well, so you don't have to change your packaging. It's as good as taking a label and sticking it onto your existing packaging, and it becomes smart. So that way, we're able to launch your connected products in weeks, and you don't have to spend a lot of upfront capital. So quickly learn and iterate. And even on single use, it is applicable. And we build the technology keeping commercialization in mind, which means that the value of the data and the value that we've proven with consumer lifetime value, expanding on that and a lot of other concrete metrics, we've built a business case where it offsets the cost of the technology with the value of the data and the better you can serve your consumers. So we have done rollouts on single use as well. And at scale, this technology is cost effective. And from the get-go, we've built it keeping the cost in mind because we know how price sensitive this application can be.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you for answering those questions, Aditi, and for adding your perspectives, Cole, Lanika. I think let's move on to the last question that we have prepared for the panel. And then with that being said, if anyone has any other questions, we will answer the rest of these in the Q&A box, but to please add any other questions that you might have while we kind of go through this last question here. So really kind of to wrap up the discussion, where do you really see this space being in the next 5 to 10 years? I think maybe specifically to add to that, because that's a super broad question, how do you also view the relationship between the brands and the consumers, especially in an age where it's all about personalization and digitalization, as we see with the implementation of smart packaging? So where do you see this space really evolving? Maybe Cole?
Yeah, I mean, we're heading to a future where everything's going to be smart, right? We're going to get there eventually, and some companies are going to be the thought leaders and the first movers on a lot of this tech, and some are going to be dragged behind, kicking and screaming, and some aren't going to make it at all. But as the price of these technologies come by, as computing power continues to go up, as our infrastructure for carrying all of this data continues to improve, I personally believe that we're going to see this kind of tech impacting every aspect of our lives, especially as consumers of products. And so what I would say to any of the companies, corporate partners, manufacturers, anybody who's listening on here, is that there are huge opportunities in this space. I mean, I've seen it myself from the other hats that I wear, particularly in innovation with the airport authority. Now is the time to start iterating with startup companies with next level tech and figuring out how to integrate that into what it is that you're doing, because it is coming. And you can look like the smartest person in the room if you bring it to the table and find new ways of activating your customers and creating new revenues and saving your companies millions of dollars. So I highly recommend finding ways to begin to engage with this kind of tech.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think exactly like you said, to work with startups essentially that can really move quickly in the space and adapt quickly, learn and kind of reiterate their products, and to really give a value add and an edge to these brands, and basically to better understand exactly who you're trying to serve. So maybe Lanika, pass it to you.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's nice to tell some examples of our consumers, because the feedback that they give is, for example, like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. This is exactly what I need in my life. Maybe you think, well, why would an olive oil bottle? But well, that's just our product. But we hear them also say, oh, this would be perfect, this technology, for my shampoo bottle or my soap or whatever product. So because of this feedback, I think this is really the future, because sometimes consumers don't know that they need it, but when they use it, they say like, yeah, this is perfect. This is just what I need. So that's why I think that they are ready, and this is the future.
That's great. Yeah, I think I would definitely love that for my shampoo bottle.
Yeah.
And Aditi, I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, as we all speak about digital transformation, right? That remains a strategic goal for a lot of corporations, and along with it now sustainability. That's a big initiative across the board. I think with those two strategic goals, empowering consumers with technology to contribute to those goals will actually help us achieve that, as a industry at large. So with that digital transformation, as I mentioned, it's becoming more a competitive advantage and even a survival in the marketplace, just because the more the brand goes the extra mile to serve their consumers or meet them at the point of need, the better the brand and top of mind is for the consumer. So adopting these technology in the future is really about how the brand can enable a better experience for the consumers, and at the end of the day, improving the quality of lives, right? Bringing in the convenience, helping them achieve their goals in terms of whether it's sustainability. A lot of consumers are now very conscious about not using single-use plastics or trying to really contribute to the environment. So helping them do that. And also, even on a personal level, you can create personalized experiences, especially in food and beverage, because everyone is trying to live a healthy lifestyle. That's one other thing that the pandemic has probably brought in, where people are more health conscious, and enabling them or empowering them with technology where they can see their own consumption habits and help them learn and improve their lifestyles is something that these technologies can enable. So the future is all about digital transformation, and with the adoption of connected devices, connected products becoming more and more rapid and accelerating in the marketplace, I think that the market is prime for these kind of technologies and adoption. And the sooner the brands adopt, they will be the better in the marketplace in the long run.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree with everything everyone has just said. I love what you said, that the future really is digital transformation. That's really where we're heading today. All right, so that kind of wraps up the discussion portion of the panel. We do have a few questions in the Q&A box, so I'll quickly kind of go through them. I think the first one, let's see, is from an anonymous attendee. So what kind of data can be gathered through smart packaging? Is it aggregated combined data, or from an individual level data? And maybe that's probably for you, Aditi.
Sure. Yes. So we actually give both data. So we do have a dashboard where it aggregates across consumers. So you can see data such as how many users, how frequent, average hours between use. You can see heat maps on the location, like which areas in the country your product is being used. You can then tie it up to demographics to understand which consumer segment is having more consumption patterns. And we also give in real time understanding of broad usage patterns, right? Time of day of use, which can be used for marketing. We give the most frequently used day in a week. So those are the broad aggregated level data, but we also allow for a download where the individual consumer data can be obtained. It's of course masked and fully compliant with PII, but you can get individual consumer consumption patterns as well. And through our two-way communication, there is a marketing automation that's where personalization comes in, where on an individual consumer pattern, you can automate certain nudging behaviors, or you can use that as a feedback tool where you can put a survey link and get the usage responses right at the point of use. So you can now understand why and get a 360-degree understanding of how consumers are interacting with your product.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of facets there. I think the possibilities are really endless with the data that you can get from the smart packaging, right?
Right, and we also give very granular usage, amount used per use. So you can see whether they're using 10 grams per use or 15 grams. So it leads to a lot of compliance. Are they using the product as they intended? You know, in terms of cleaning products, are they diluting enough? They're not diluting it. Because if they don't use the product as they are instructed, they don't get the best performance out of the product, and it leads to brand switching. So these are certain use cases that you can use with the data.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that kind of covers another question that I see here. I think Margaret asked, can the smart label also have other functions attached to it? I think determining if there's more needed based on the space that's left, or maybe if you can tell how much is left in the can. I think I remember seeing a video from you with Diti where when you like poured, I think maybe it was a Coke bottle or something, you can actually see how much is left in the bottle. So maybe you can describe that use case. I think that'd be really, really good.
Sure. So yeah, basically the sensors generate about 16 features or data points where we take that and build a model, including inputs like viscosity. For example, olive oil has a different viscosity compared to water. So we take these and actually build an AI model that determines how much is remaining. So at any point in time, you can actually see how much is remaining in the bottle in terms of grams. And every usage, we take the certain features and determine for each usage how much is being poured. So it is a sensor-based AI technology where we tap out the sensor data to build models, and you get that as a data point where you can understand for each usage whether there's 80% remaining, 70%, 50%, 10%, and it can get very accurate depending on the product. And that's something we do in our calibration process, and would be happy to explain more.
Yeah, absolutely. Whoever is interested in connecting to Aditi, please type in the chat or reach out to, I think Shin put some contact information in the chat box. Even just seeing the live demo, I remember it from maybe a little while back, is really fascinating. You can really see in real time when you pour the bottle, like on the dashboard, you can see the level go down at a very granular scale. So whoever is intrigued and wants to learn more would definitely reach out to them.
Yeah, the demos are fun. We'd love to show that. Yeah.
Super cool. And you can kind of see the value add immediately from that. I think this next question is probably for you and Monica, again, about the crowdsourcing. I think Margaret was asking, how do you control if there's any competitive info leaks if you are crowdsourcing? I think when you did do it for your olive oil bottle.
Yeah, I think also with a crowdfunding campaign, you're always 3 steps ahead. So you're almost ready to go. So you have, in our example, we have the olive oil, we have, the best olive oil, we have our packaging, Edrich had the technology, so we were ready to go. So you're always some steps ahead of the competition. So we were not really afraid of that. And also crowdfunding is a very good publicity tool as well. So it's just for companies who are like almost ready. So yeah, you show a lot of information, but you're always some steps ahead.
And if I could piggyback on that real quick, we were talking before about, at least I think, that we're going to see this kind of tech on a lot of products in the future. Keep in mind that this is a physical technology product that gives you data that you can then manipulate, or that Aditi through the Aggregated software side of things can manipulate. But what that also means is that there's first level data that you get that Monica might be using, for example. But as you continue to use the product, you can find those other use cases for it within the deployment that you've already done. And so just again, going back to the original question about kind of like giving up a competitive advantage, the sooner that you start working on this, it's not so, eventually everybody is going to be able to do fulfillment in one way or the other. what's really going to differentiate you is what you do with that data. And the more familiarity and the more kind of critical mass you have with that product and with the data that you get will allow you to come up with, other different use cases for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that crowdsourcing piece, Monica. I think it's also great to really get your first group of customers as well, people that really believe in the product. So that's really great there. And like you said, Cole, I mean, the initial use case can really be on the fulfillment side like you did, but really the insights that you get from it can be beyond even the realm of possibilities that you even began to thought. And it's really what you do with the data, right? How do you create intelligent data that you can have these actionable insights, which really makes a differentiator. It's not just having the data itself. So exactly what you said. There is another question in the Q&A box from Michelle. Did a livery decide on the refill by mail pouch strategy or a different bottle recovery strategy? And are any companies working with Aggregated specifically to handle recovery of packaging? So I'll pass it to you, maybe you first, Monica, and then maybe Aditi can add on there.
Yeah, just to understand this question, what is meant with recovery strategy?
Yeah, I think maybe do you swap out the bottles, I think is what they're asking. Like, do you send back the bottle and then you get a new bottle by mail, or do you just kind of send the refill, I think, from the pouch?
I understand. Well, it's more sustainable to keep your bottle at home because it's a glass bottle and it's heavy. So if you send it by post, then you have to protect it. It's also a big package, so you can keep the bottle at home. And we have chosen for really flat, compact refill pouches, and those pouches fit in the letter box. So it's not a big package, it's really small and really flat, and it just fits in every letter box. So that's why we've chosen for this way of refilling the bottle. Other ways of refilling, because for example in the Netherlands, it's a small country, I mean, people of course also could go to the shop to refill it there, but then you have to store the olive oil, and storage of olive oil is very hard, because olive oil will, well, the quality goes back when there's too much light or too much air in the product. The refill pouches are always stored in the dark. We always produce them every month, so they are fresh. So the quality stays in the best possible way. So that's also the reason why we have chosen this strategy.
Got it. I think that makes perfect sense. Super sustainable as well. I think it's really similar. I mean, if you go to the store, there's kind of the normal bottle and then there's the refillable bottles. I think, with maybe a little bit more, or, but this way, exactly when you need to refill it, right? And you ship it out to them. Yeah, I think I'm seeing there's no open questions in the Q&A box. I'll kind of give them a couple of minutes to see if there's anything here popping up. But if you guys don't mind, whoever's still on the line to fill out this NPS poll, will be really helpful. It really helps us determine whether or not these are, good content pieces, good panel discussions that we're having. And so it would be really appreciated if you fill out that poll really quickly. Okay, I don't think there's any other questions. I'll pass it to you guys if you guys have any last minute comments or any advice or anything you'd like to share with the group that we have today. Actually, it might be, okay, one more comment here. Can Aditi jump in with if any companies are using their tech to deal with packaging recovery? So I guess from a sustainability standpoint, maybe.
Sure. Yes. So in that recovery process, in terms of getting the product back and the reverse supply chain, what we have seen is we enable a digital connection when consumers run out, right? So at that point, because of that digital connection, you are able to either ship the next product or send them to a refill station. And in terms of sending them to a refill station, it's almost like how Cole mentioned, right? Driving foot traffic to a retailer. So we have seen that model also. So with Oliveri, we did refill at home use case. With certain other brands where we have incentivize the consumers to either go to a refill station or even put it in a box and ship it back. So that is one way that we've, with the digital connection, you can basically get very creative in how you want to engage the consumers and what behavior you want to drive. So there have been strategies where brands have incentivized the consumers if they come back with the packaging, and that way you can introduce reusability of the packaging, including the smart label. So that is one model we've done, and we do have partnerships with certain e-waste manufacturers, for example, to recover the smart labels. We also have, for example, TerraCycle is another example of a partner where there is recyclability introduced by putting it in the tote bag, where we help with that digital connection. So you can get creative with your strategy and align that and nudge them to a behavior that will actually drive adoption, and incentivizing and messaging it as a sustainability initiative has been helping with consumers. Even today, when we have to dispose of the smart label, we message it saying, we want to dispose it off in a very responsible way. So please send this back to us, and we just give envelope and every consumer sends it back. So there's a very strong reaction, positive reaction from the consumers as well.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
hope that helped.
Yeah, hopefully that answers Michelle's question. And yeah, I think consumers are definitely all striving to be more sustainable. I think that's what they're demanding of a lot of these corporations. And so they're also practicing it on their own as well. So I'm not sure if there's any other questions, but I'll kind of go back to any closing comments that anybody might have.
I would just say that digital transformation is real. It's really definitely a need in the market, and consumers are ready. So I think it's a prime time to first meet their needs, because the needs have changed significantly. And two, there is a first mover advantage with this specific use case and technology. So capitalizing on that would get the brand possibly 10x further in their prospects on all the strategy and strategic goals that they are trying to achieve.
I've already sung the praises of Aggregated as a product, and I totally agree that this digital revolution is coming. I would just kind of advocate for all kind of corporate partners, brand managers, product owners, whoever is on this call, to really, well, two things. One, talk to a DT and understand the capacity of this tech. And then two, once you have that understanding, really think outside of the box of the applications of it. Because again, this is kind of a platform technology where it is collecting data on something and sending it to you so that you can act on it. And so the applications, while CPG and is an easy and obvious application of this tech, and it's a great place to start, and there's a clear value and benefit there. Look further afield, because the applications for this are endless, and sensors of all sorts are going to be on absolutely everything. And so consider this a tool in the digital toolbox of your company. Oh, and if you want to do anything at the Pittsburgh airport, we're open for business.
Yeah, there's innovation there.
There we go.
Absolutely. Anything you want to add, Launica?
No, I think yeah, I just totally agree with Cole, and it's just as a company, as a startup, it's also super fun to work with an innovative product. So as a company, we are learning every day from our consumers, and most of all, we already think that we know our consumer. So we have a lot of thoughts, which gives you so much direction. But these are the real insights. So it's also an eye opener as a company to work with real-time data, like this smart label for age.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, we have one last minute question. So from Margaret, are you seeing the need for this type of smart packaging with other groups as well? Baby boomers, Gen X, I think she added previously. Is it maybe focus on millennials that kind of care a little bit more about sustainability, or are you seeing this in all different types of demographics?
Well, I can tell something about that, because we first of all thought like that there were the young families who would order our product because they don't have a lot of time and they like convenience and they also like good food products. But with the first batch, with the first users, some of them brought them at their home. And then I was surprised by the consumers, because like some people were like 60 or 70 years old and they were so curious about this product. So that surprised us as well. So we don't see a very specific age group for now. Yeah, so it's not really one target group. And we thought in the beginning that it was more one group, but it's a broader group. Yeah.
And I don't want to harp on the diversification of use cases here too much, but I'll just add to that to say that as you look further afield with applications where fulfillment is needed, not just with consumer products, but when you look at elder care as an example, there's a huge potential use case here for fulfillment. And then also from the sustainability perspective, the consumer might be the consumer's desire to have sustainable brands and use and consume sustainable products is absolutely part of it. But from a broader kind of sustainability goal of a company, regardless of whether that's driven directly by the bottom line or other factors in play, are also a part of this. So, I would just recommend that everybody uses a very wide lens when they think about not only the applications, but what's driving the motivations behind both the corporate partners and various user groups. It's not just a tech fulfillment solution for lazy millennials.
Yeah. And it's also interesting that from our stats standpoint, we didn't have any issues with across the board demographics in terms of connecting the product. Usually how only tech savvy people can connect we kept the consumers in mind while designing, and consumers across age groups. So from a adoption standpoint, connecting the products, all that has been seamless. And there's another interesting use case that we uncovered that actually for baby boomers, it was the kids who were ordering their supplies, and instead they could use this technology as a substitute, where the kids didn't have to worry about whether their parents are running out. That was an interesting dynamic there that we uncovered in one particular segment. So it's across the board. It doesn't have to specifically be for millennials.
Yeah, that's great. So I think that officially wraps up the panel discussion. I do want to, again, extend a thank you to everybody on the panel today. Aditi, Launica, Cole, really valuable insights. Thank you for coming here and sharing that with us. I think it was really helpful to people in the audience, people who want to understand smart packaging better, also understand the applications and use cases as well. So with that, I will kind of close out this session, and thank you everyone for listening today.